Yeah, so what I'll do is now I'll request the panelists to kind of make their opening remarks, and then we'll get into question and answer. So anybody who wants to go first, wants to start, you'll go? You want to
Yeah,
start?
I think when you kind of came across this topic, I think it was a no-brainer for me because I felt I would choose skills over degree. As we kind of progress through the discussion, I'll kind of bring up a few pointers. The first thing was obviously to kind of Google and see what are the other part of the world is thinking about. And I think the more and more time you spend in the HR domain, you kind of realize that degrees may be a necessity, but the skill is what kind of takes over in the longer run.
I think skills and MBAs are two different stuff in my mind. It's not like MBA people don't have skills or skilled people can't do MBAs at a later stage. There are two parallel lines. Just to give you an example, you go and ask a car mechanic to sell a car. I very much doubt he'll sell the car to you. He'll tell you there are 333 parts in the car, you know, how difficult it was to fit in, and how long it took for him to fit in. But you go and ask an MBA student to sell the car, they'll say how good the car is, you know, what is the color of the car, what are the major stuff, and how it suits your personality. So mixing up these two would not make sense in my mind. So it will be critical to look at it from two perspectives. I think since we are talking about skills per se, I don't know how many of, some of you all wouldn't have been born when the whole idea of skills in India came up. I think the first time it got talked about was in 1935. I think there was a comment, somebody lamented about skills for youngsters. And in 1945, the industrial policy resolution came in where they talked about getting youngsters, graduates into manufacturing industry. And in 1975, Indira Gandhi came up with the Apprenticeship Act. And today, as we speak, we have only 3 lakh people who are under the Apprenticeship Act. So a lot of it needs execution. So if you don't execute, then it's all on the paper. And according to me, I think if you're looking at skills in today's world, they're so different from what it was earlier. In the 1960s, I think, from 1960s onwards, in the US, every 10 years, the skills have changed. So you can't be, kind of having people reskilling them, then you have to look at totally different skills. And that is, I think, going to happen in India today. And I think as we speak, the kind of skill sets that we are talking are so different. So there are 4 things that I'd like to touch upon. I think skill development should be very self-healing. The governments need to look at it, not necessarily as a standoff, because today I think the central government is in the driver's seat. We need to look at how central government and state government collaborate with each other, A. B, I think we cannot have somebody being trained for just 3 months, what they have not done for 12 years. I'm talking about somebody who's at least at 12th standard, which means we need to ingrain this in the education system. 3, I think we need to look at how we promote and explore the private sector. And 4, I think very critical, we need to look at innovative skills and how to bring them into mainstream. So we can't just keep talking about saying India needs different skills, it's a VUCA world and all that. I think everybody needs to collaborate, and hopefully the panel will look at that as a discussion, and we'll talk about it in a greater length. Thank you.
So my thoughts on this are that I believe that educational degrees are a pre-course, whereas skills are a means to an end. And obviously a lot more on this that I'd like to elaborate on as we go through the discussion. But that's my opening thought.
For me, I think I'd like to say that this discussion is more from whether it's degree or the skills. I think it's more of pedigree versus the potential. For me, I would like to say a small story because the organization which I represent or the industry which I represent, there's not many professional qualifications in that. Nobody starts to be an exhibitions professional. So everybody wants to be a doctor, engineer, accountant, lawyer. And how do you get talent? And there's a story very close to my heart because we follow that in our organization. We work with a organization called EduBridge, and they train these graduates who come out and who are looking for jobs. And they are graduates. They are employable, but they are not getting jobs. So what we do is we work with them. We, in fact, train them for the skill sets which are required on the job, and they go through this. We fund that, and we have already done 2 batches of that, be it your conversation skills, be it your, I'll say the presentation skills, and a lot of different skills which we work on. And that's where that has helped them to get jobs, and we have absorbed quite a few of them. So I believe that education is a starting point, or degrees is a starting point, but then I think skill sets is what matters as we go ahead in life.
For me, skill and the education, it's probably it's if I have to just draw parallel, an anecdote. The skill, it's like a paper. It's a platform. Certain things are inherited. Certain things can be developed. For me, a pencil is something, it has been endorsed, which like for an institute or an education has endorsed what what I bring in. So I think both existence is of equal importance. I mean, I think in a different level, I think we spoke about, Nirupama spoke about in the grassroots level, but in the corporate world, probably it's in a different level. I think the challenge for us is to how to marry these, and the scalability is one of the key things. That's the way I view this.
Yeah. So, excuse me, please. So I think when we ask ourselves what is important, skill or degree, now the question is, why are we even asking this question? What are we looking for? I think most of the times the reason is when we are trying to acquire a particular talent, we want the productivity, we want retention, and we also want that the person is actually interested in what he is trying to do in that organization. So, if it kind of take a step back and adding on to what Madam just said, I think degree used to be kind of yardstick for what is the skill that a particular candidate or particular person brings in the organization. If we kind of go back in 80s or 70s, a person who has done, let's say, mechanical engineering and going into a mechanical industry, a mechanical organization, he is going to apply the skills he has acquired, he or she has acquired over the last 4 or 5 years of his education in that organization, or chemical engineer, whatever it is. And so what he has actually acquired, the skill has acquired, he's going to use that, and the degree used to be the yardstick at that point in time. We are kind of continuing that, and we still use degree to a certain extent as a yardstick of what the skill that person brings with him or her. So I don't think I like to belittle the importance of the degree, but at the same time, there has been so much of opportunities opening up that people doing a particular kind of degree may not be doing similar kind of work. The opportunities have really opened up. So to me, most of the times when we are trying to hire someone in our organization, skill actually matters a lot over degree. And to take it further, what finally matters to us is not just skill and degree, it's finally, is that person really fit for the opportunity that we have? Is that person really interested? Does that person have the right aptitude and attitude for that particular opportunity? So skill and degree to me are both important. Degree is to a certain extent a yardstick of the skill, acquired skill, plus there is an inherent skill that person has, or maybe that's something that he has learned over through his childhood. And then the third most important thing is he a good fitment? Does he really want to do what we have got to offer to that person?
Okay. Thank you. So as I sit listening to the panelist, I was just thinking, what makes me to be on this panel? What qualifications do I bring to be on this panel? So I have a degree, a PhD in mathematics, and I'm a HR head of a IT services company. So I was just wondering, where the debate is going, right? So I think the way I am seeing this, issue or the statement is that education has a larger purpose, right? It's about inculcating values. It's about getting you interested in a subject. You get passionate about it, and then you go and start getting more curious and start building knowledge in an area. That's the purpose of education. And what a degree guarantees, and I believe it guarantees, that it instigates curiosity in that subject area. Now, it ends there. But what we do is we kind of take that and extend it to a job. We say just because somebody has done computer science, he or she will be a great software developer. Not true. I have an example. I had hired a girl from one of the top-notch NITs, gold medalist in computer science. She came into our organization and she failed our training. It was a very simple thing, but she failed. So I called her and said, you can't fail this, right? You should be able to do it because you are gold medalist from a very good NIT. She said, I'm not interested in coding. She was not interested in coding. Now, that's the issue, right? So a degree guarantees that you have a curiosity and you develop knowledge in a certain area that you choose to study. And it does not guarantee that you'll excel in that area when you get into a corporate. And that's where I think the skill comes in. That's how I see it. And it is a lot more than just education, okay? Now, which is important? I think both are important according to me. So we will get some more comments from the panelists on this, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I think for me, fundamentally, I think there's so much of stress that we put in India over getting a degree, right? And I think that's where the challenge is, right? So whether you like it or you don't, you're forced to go into college, you're forced to take a degree. And just like you mentioned, right, that's where the challenge is when you actually hit into a corporate world and then you realize this is not something I want to do, but I was supposed to do. I think historically, right, we've never been a country that really values a trade or a skill. Right? If you look at Australia, they value trade, they value a welder or a plumber. Here you have somebody who's all rolled into one. Right? There's never been a clear-cut guy who will come and say, I'm only a plumber or an electrician, because he's never trained to be that, right? We are always shy of telling people if you don't have a degree. So it's a very fundamental shift that has to happen if you want to go and get the right kind of people in the right kind of jobs that we're looking for. While we have a very high rate of education, we still have a very high rate of unemployment also, right? I mean, it's pretty much going in hand, because as organizations, we are finding it difficult to find the right person to fill that job. We may have fancy degrees, but just like you mentioned, there are so many examples where we have a role open, we have a very, very qualified person, but not a skilled person, right? And I think that's going to be the challenge as we go along this journey.
Yeah. So my experience has been that I've seen, like, if you take computer science versus an electronics engineer, there is a myth there, electronics engineers, electronics related, electrical, they actually outbeat the computer science students, So, and that's the, that is required in the industry, right? And that's the trend that I have seen. That's number one. Number two, if you look at 10 years back, we used to visit institutes for the campus. Now the trend is that they want to catch young, which means that internship is a platform. Let's take, I hire 60 interns, and I want to convert the maximum. If I get 50, 58, or 60 even, to make them as employees, that's good enough. So it's a platform where, as an employer, I get to evaluate, and even for an intern, it's an opportunity to evaluate us, right? And I think that's one of the things, it's been there. It's a millennial crowd, what we are looking at, right? So I think that's the change that I have seen from past 8 to 10 years.
I do have comments on both, talking about education degrees as well as skill set. Especially the fact that you mentioned, we're looking at the millennial crowd. A little something about the millennial crowd that we're noticing as we continue to hire is that these aren't people who are waiting around for the right opportunity to come knocking at their door. These are people who may have, joined the wrong field of education. Maybe that's because of parental pressure, maybe that's because of your own wrong decisions. Even if you keep parental pressure aside, I think there's a lot of us that make voluntary decisions and aren't happy with the field of work the field that we chose to study. And there's a lot of us that then digress later when we actually join the workforce. And something that I've realized with the more and more people that we speak with as of today is that if they know what they want, as long as you have the zeal and the the enthusiasm in order to grasp it, there's literally nothing in your way. And this is hugely a product of the resources that we have available today. the internet is massive, and I think there's also so many startups and so many well-established companies today in the space of ensuring that there are training mechanisms and building of skills, irrespective of what that is. LinkedIn itself has a very robust training tool present within itself. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to firstly hire the best talent, and then you also want to retain this talent. And I think that really gets amplified once you are able to keep your employees engaged. And a huge part of employee engagement is how connected they feel to the work they're doing and the paths that they want to go towards. And a little something that we do here at WeWork actually is we have free LinkedIn learning access for every employee that comes in, because we want you to be able to pick out courses that it may not be relevant to your field, and that's exactly why there's a plethora of opportunities available for you. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you.